The legacy economy attempts to force a multi-dimensional planet into a flat, centralized mechanism, guaranteeing absolute systemic failure. This failure stems from a fatal ontological error. We are attempting to route a 10-dimensional, living planetary ecology through one-dimensional corporate ledgers that lack the complexity to process biological reality. This mismatch creates what we call entangled temporal floats. When a 90-day financial reporting cycle crashes into the multi-decade timeline required for ecological recovery, the result is a violent asynchronous lag. To measure this lag, we look to the World Bank's valuation of unpriced human and natural capital, a threshold sitting at $1.152 quadrillion. This 1.152 quadrillion is not a market to be extracted. According to Carlotta Perez's models of technological surges, this figure represents the exact measurement of thermodynamic drag, the friction of forcing a 10D world through a 1D pipe. This friction remains trapped because of interstitial blindness. Cartesian systems only measure data that crosses their specific firewall, ignoring the massive grinding and delays occurring in the spaces between disparate ledgers. Consequently, institutions mistake the narrow pipe of global GDP for the total economy. GDP is merely a lagging one-dimensional metric of extracted value that blinds us to the true kinetic flow of the planet. Historically, the transition to the information age required 10-dimensional humans to compress their identities into one-dimensional statistical ghosts just to interface with algorithms. We see these ghosts today as ideal customer profiles in product development and jurisdictional composites like the average ratepayer in our legal code. This mechanical framework devalues biological and metaphysical human labor. Rather than democratizing leisure as Keynes predicted, the machine labeled these human contributions as unproductive zeros. We are now hard-coding this ontological decay into the silicon mirror. By training advanced artificial intelligence on these fractured, one-dimensional composites, we are automating the same blindness that caused our systemic collapse. Advanced enterprises fail to solve planetary crises because their algorithms operate on these static maps. To fix the system, we must move from these hallucinations to the verified reality of the living edge. Repairing our planet requires the strict demotion of advanced technology to a one-dimensional, subservient mechanical routing layer. Dr. Judea Pearl's mathematics prove that algorithms exist on the lowest rungs of cognitive capability. They lack the capacity for counterfactuals and imagination, the essential tools for creating meaning. We therefore reframe advanced technology as a one-dimensional intelligence augmentation exoskeleton. It is a tool for absorbing the mechanical burdens of physical routing and compliance, nothing more. The supranational capability primes serve as the foundational human cohorts managing this exoskeleton. They provide bedrock capacities of compute, advanced silicon, sustainable energy, and logistics for global coordination. Fixing the planet requires recoupling these siloed operational datasets. We strap these one-dimensional machines to the collective biological intent of the localized human swarm to safely guide the global transition. Ashby's law of requisite variety dictates that our control system must perfectly and mathematically match the 10-dimensional complexity of the Earth. To manage the planet, we must build a system that mirrors it. This is achieved via the 10-7-5-4-1 kinetic sequence. At the top sits the 10D social helix, the human swarm providing intent.
Beneath it is the 7D unbundled substrate, representing physical capacity. The middle tier is the decoupling layer, where technology is deposited as raw capability. Below that lies the 4D sovereign helix, where regulators map agreements to deterministic truth. The base is 1D systems time, representing the final execution at continuous t+0. Following Elinor Ostrom's brilliant proofs of nested polycentricity, this architecture ensures that exascale ambition never extracts value from local communities. Global capability must compensate the local capacity it utilizes. This stack provides the constraints required to synchronize disparate brownfield systems into a single deterministic truth. The legacy model of extracting raw data into centralized corporate lakes is fueling deglobalization. Nations are rightfully enacting data localization laws to protect their sovereign assets. ZyroHive resolves this by rejecting data centralization. Computation happens in situ, behind a local firewall. The exoskeleton pulls variables exclusively into volatile RAM to mint a zero-knowledge proof. Once minted, the system executes ephemeral deletion, instantly wiping the RAM to ensure localized data remains unexposed. This process is governed by a biological leash. To initiate the exoskeleton, the local edge must achieve a 67% consensus, ensuring the machine never acts without human permission. By transitioning from data extraction to local cryptographic proofing, we secure sovereign traditions, while granting global enterprises the telemetry they need to coordinate complex supply chains. Phase 4 begins the moment a system achieves metabolic recursion, continuously replacing broken links with synchronized healthy tissue. This is Phase 4 autopoiesis, the threshold where multi-year lags between counterparts evaporate, and the ecosystem drops to continuous real-time execution. Ilya Prigozhin's work on dissipative structures proves that complex systems must exist far from equilibrium. They require this continuous kinetic flow just to maintain their own multidimensionality. Upon reaching this state, the engine drops its historical restitution weights. It stops triaging 20th century debt and begins applying evolutionary weights to prioritize future growth. In this infinite game, the act of living natively recomposes the network. Human stewardship generates localized intelligence, which the system records as permanent, reusable assets. By replacing speculative debt with kinetic yield, the system natively funds its own high-variance discoveries and ecological regeneration. As the 4D pattern ledger takes over intelligence generation, the 5-layer stack undergoes a final mathematical collapse. The top-down monopolies of the 5th layer dissolve. The friction of law in the 4th layer automates into the background, functioning as frictionless policy as code. This triggers the meso-inversion. With intelligence generated entirely at the local edge, it becomes the absolute macro authority. The global exoskeleton is demoted to a flat routing layer, simply moving capacity based on the biological intent of the human edge. Trust is redefined as kinetic yield. Every unit of yield is a cryptographic proof that reality was successfully synchronized, replacing the need for centralized oversight with trustless truth. The 10-7-1 continuum perfectly aligns human consciousness with the biological substrate, extending frictionless energy streams into exoscale habitats. By securing the localized edge, we restore the human mind to its biological ecosystem, enabling the conscious navigation of our shared physical reality.